that create strife and destroy life.
Walk cautiously, children, be alert, because you have an enemy that's roaming the earth.
I know you're young and restless, but you don't have to be careless.
You see, sober thinking leads on to righteousness, to happiness,
spiritual bliss. That's why I tell you this.
Watch out, my children. Watch out, my children. Yeah, yeah.
It have a fella called Lucifer with a bag of white powder, and he don't want to powder your face, but to bring shame and disgrace to the human race. I give you my counsel because I want to see all you young people live righteously.
For what you feed your mind with forms your characteristic
And shape the path that you must walk tomorrow.
darkness or glow,
Joy or sorrow, that's why I'm concerned. So watch out, my children.
yeah.
Watch out, my children.
Oh, oh, oh. They have a fella called Lucifer with a bag of powder,
And he don't want to powder your face, but to bring shame and disgrace to the human race.
I'd like to share this with the Spanish-speaking community. Cuidado, mis hijos. Cuidado, mis hijos. Hay un hombre que se llama Lucifer con una voz de poco blanco. Y ya no quiere probar su cara, pero para traer pena y desgracia para la raza humana. Oh,
You are young,
and your future
is ahead of you. Right or wrong, sweet or sour,
depends on what you do.
taking the wrong direction
Will drain your constitution
and promote mental chaos and confusion.
then corruption. Today in a man.
And that is not God's plan.
To my friends, speaking brothers and sisters, et il ne va pas se pour le visage, mais apporter en tête à la main. For all those who speak Hindi, देखो मेरे बच्चा लोगों, देखो मेरे बच्चा लोगों, एक इंसान शशा शचन है, उसका पास है थैला पाउडर का, और दूसरों को पाउडर नहीं लगाता है, मनुष्यता का नाम आगे है एक बदनाम
Ion Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio, at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays, at 10 a.m., and exclusively, on I95.5 FM.
And streamed live, on the Ion Dependency Facebook page, and YouTube channel.
Good morning and welcome to Ion Dependency on I95.5 FM. I'm Garth.
And I'm Natasha, and today, in recognition of World Drug Day, which was commemorated on the 26th of June, We are taking a closer look at the organized crime driving the drug trade across Latin America and the Caribbean.
Our guest in studio is researcher and author Daurius Figueira, who has spent years studying how these networks operate and why they're so hard to dismantle.
The theme of this year's commemoration is Break the Cycle, a reminder that if we keep doing the same things, we'll keep getting the same results. So today we are asking, what will it really take to stop this trade from destroying lives?
Stay with us. Call, message, or comment with your questions and views on Facebook and YouTube. Let's get started. Daurius, good morning.
Morning. Greetings. Thank you all for having me.
Now, as you all may be aware, who's not familiar with Daurius, over the years, he is noted for speaking out, speaking his mind, and telling it like it is. I am surprised he's still alive today. The thing is, Daurius has been fearless, just like us here, but as you know, like I've always said on Dependency, as an NGO, our job is to look out for the vulnerable, the ones who fall by the wayside. The substances and activities that are being peddled around, whether legal or illegal, we have no control over that. There's nothing we can do about it. It is there, and we will die and leave it. That's a part of life that we should by now have come to accept. Unfortunately, there are casualties from this war. And we hear it from time to time. We hear it on a daily basis from the consumers of alcohol, the practitioners of the gambling, and, of course, the other illicit drugs as opioids and cocaine. So in this program today, before we get started with Daurius, we will, again, for those of you who are interested, you're going through your child's bag, you see a brownie. You decide, let me take a bite of this, it looks nice. Then next thing you know, you're in the emergency room. What it looks like, we will show you. We have a report from edibles that was found in a school in Bahamas. Drug-dependent babies. They heard the minister spoke about meth, crystal meth. We'll give you an update on that, on the product, and the damage and harm it can cause. This is Dependency, and everything has a history. The history and structure of illicit drugs and organized crime networks in the Caribbean. Daurius, give us a little history on that, please.
Thank you. What we must first understand and appreciate is that we don't produce many of the substances we consume. And this is a illicit business run by specific business models. And these business models are under the control of transnational organized crime. When I say transnational, I mean the reach of these organizations are like multinational corporations. They span the globe. So what we must first understand is that it is organized crime that has now rapidly evolved to become transnational. They span various countries, they operate in various countries, and they have a chain of command that is very, very similar to a legal business. They have strategic planning, they have a mode of organization. Their intent is to maximize profits, to generate income, and to accumulate vast amounts of wealth. Dispel from your mind this position that these people are inherently bad. That is why they are in the game, and therefore people who are in legal businesses are inherently good. This is a business designed to make wealth, generate wealth, accumulate wealth, invest this wealth. It is a rational business. So what we must understand, these businesses constantly look to create products that maximize income, maximize wealth accumulation, lower the cost of production, and increase demand on the consumer markets. This thing is rational. And if you look at the cycle of illicit drugs that have flowed through Trinidad and Tobago since the late 1960s to 2025, I will show you and explain to you the rational cycle involved. In 1969, when I was a young man of 15 years old, when Black Power was moving through Trinidad and Tobago, suddenly we started to get huge amounts of herbal ganja appearing and a synthetic amphetamine termed mandrax, where in Trinidad we called it MX. As a young man, I watched this and I learned that the culture of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, they have an affinity to try and to use these synthetic drugs because the use of mandrax exploded as it hit the market in North Trinidad. From the first time it appeared, it was 10 cents in those days for a tablet. Within a week, it went to 25 cents for one because demand was so high, it was outstripping supply. Herbal ganja flooded the East-West corridor, accelerating access to the herbal ganja. When I say herbal ganja, I mean ganja, compressed ganja from Colombia that you could smoke. So consumption of ganja in Trinidad exploded. But what happened as we move into the 1970s, and you will see brothers and sisters who are on MX in the blockoramas of that era knocked out coal from the mandrax because it slows your body down and you literally end up sitting on the ground with long dribbles coming down out of your mouth all over your chest and things like that. Sometimes they prop themselves up against DJ Moody Man boxes and things like that. These are back in times I'm giving you all. So what happened, you notice that suddenly the supply of mandrax dried up in Trinidad because the Colombians and their Mexican investors now took the business decision to invest huge sums of money to create cocaine, powdered cocaine, what is called cocaine hydrochloride. So by the late 1970s, when you started to see the influx of cocaine, powdered cocaine into Trinidad and Tobago, the mandrax had disappeared because what they wanted is that we must now become consumers of powdered cocaine. They wanted to turn us off from synthetic drugs and turn us on to powdered cocaine. And we responded. But what was happening is that the price of the powdered cocaine, when it started coming in, was not making it an affordable product. And the only way the price could have for powdered cocaine fell in Trinidad is when they flooded the market with huge quantities of powdered cocaine and the price started to fall. But already in the late 1970s, we were seeing the syndrome of blow, where they were snorting the cocaine all over the place. It became a common drug.
Now, stick up in Daurius. You're talking about a period of the 70s and early 80s where compare the economic situation in Trinidad and Tobago and how the market was responding to that economic system and how the drugs fit into there.
Yes. So what happened to us from 1973, we started to see the ripple effect of the oil boom, the first oil boom. The second oil boom was in 1979. we were flying in and out of Trinidad at will, going up New York, buying this and that, coming back, leaving with the suitcases empty and coming back with the suitcases full. I myself was in that hustle. So, and we were going to all the discotheques in New York and partying, and people were going in the discotheques in New York and taking the blow. And that was it. And so what happened in Trinidad now, with the money that was flowing through Trinidad with the oil money, we started to get an international experience. And what began in the 1970s is, as the cocaine started to come in, we had entrepreneurs in Trinidad who were now collecting the cocaine and carrying it to New York. And that is when Trinbagonian trafficking from Trinidad to New York started. So the first set of traffickers out of Trinidad they were heading to New York, because remember, up to today, New York City is the largest and most profitable illicit drug market in America. It still sucks in tons of illicit drugs, because that's the culture of New York City. In those days, the Big Apple. So what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago is that the price begins to fall. But then, we need now to create a powdered cocaine-based product that is affordable to the masses. We want it to penetrate to the lowest levels of the society. We want to immerse the society in cocaine addiction to maximize our wealth through income growth. And that is when they invented crack. But what you all must understand in Trinidad and Tobago is that we had an entrepreneur in Trinidad and Tobago who, in his mother's kitchen, invented a Trinidad version of crack. He had an A level in chemistry that had a reputation for being the most potent crack on the market. And that is why in Trinidad and Tobago, the crack epidemic in Trinidad and Tobago lasted into the decade of the 1990s, going down into the 21st century. Because by the time the early 21st century reached in Trinidad, we had the phenomena of men 50 and 60 in their 50s and 60s for the first time in their life turning on to crack. And this Trinidad and Tobago method of making crack was so potent is that we had crack cooks, leaving Trinidad and going to New York and teaching them in New York how to make Trinidad crack. It was so potent. So what happened? That is why, if you remember, in the 1990s, Trinidad and Tobago was awash in sprangers because of the potency of that Trinidad model we invented.
Witness.
So what is happening? I remember those days well. You pull up by the traffic light and they will come to you, and everybody have the heebie-jeebies because they're thirsty, they need to hit that zush pipe. So crack now came, and you invented the zush pipe by which you will heat that crack so that when you inhale it, it goes straight to your lungs. And it immediately hits your bloodstream fast, better than sucking blow up your nose into your sinuses and then into your lungs. So crack was a fast high, much faster than blow. And that is what they are doing. When I heard the Minister of Homeland Security describe what the school children doing when they're zushing the crystal meth, I hold my old head and say, wow. Because when you zushing, people must understand that crack cannot compare to crystal meth.
Correct.
Because crystal meth is a nightmare, a living nightmare. Because a meth head, a crackhead, and we have experience with crackhead in Trinidad and Tobago, a meth head outpaces and listen, the dangerous thing with a meth head is the paranoia. They go simply paranoid, reckless violence. So, but I will come to that. So what is happening to us? The cocaine came in And what started to happen now, besides the cocaine coming in, Trinidad and Tobago now started to get illicit drug entrepreneurs who are now not only selling it locally, perfecting it locally, but they are now trafficking it out of Trinidad into the North Atlantic. So we had entrepreneurs in Trinidad who pioneered moving powdered cocaine from Trinidad and Tobago to Europe. So even before Pablo Escobar and the Cali cartel reached Europe, we had independents from Trinidad and Tobago who took their own initiative and their knowledge to pioneer moving kilo bricks from Trinidad to Europe. That is the kind of initiative that we in the Caribbean indicates, because remember, we are a people who have to be on the move in order to survive. And we always on the move all over the world. I don't think it's a place in the world you could go and you don't have a Trini or a Begonian. So that is the dual nature.
So
But
does that reflect, as you're talking about the criminal networks and the business model that they employ, that means that we have tremendous business minds here in Trinidad and Tobago. It's just that, the product that they chose is very destructive.
And what, in my years studying the game and speaking with them, what they indicate to you is that they had to take by the scruff of the neck the opportunities afforded them, because they were not in the league of the big players. They were not in the league of those who dominate the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. And all that was afforded them was the illicit trade. That's the only space was afforded them for upward mobility, to grow themselves into a kingpin. And they took the opportunity, and many of them ended up either dead or in jail. Because what happened is that the bigger traffickers would lick up the little ones to create space for the big ones, because the small ones are always expendable. So we have paid a great price. The coming of cocaine was the most traumatic impact on the social order of Trinidad and Tobago that we still inheriting up to today, because remember, the same people who brought in the cocaine brought in all the illicit guns. Because the transnational organized crime groups who control the drug trade, they also move all the human smuggling. They are in control of it. And all the arms and the weapons of war, they are also in control of it. And they have their huge money laundering operations. So don't feel that they only into illicit drugs. They corner the illicit markets. So they move all the sex workers. They move them. They work for them. All the illicit migrants are moved by their coyotes all over the world.
And this is all of this is in the face of attempts at governments and law enforcement to crack down on it.
Yes. And they have grown in spite of the war on drugs. In fact, the war on drugs has been a failure, because it is a fake war. It is a fake war, because if you're really serious about your war on drugs, you will first understand the enemy you're faced with. And then you will move to mitigate the threat they pose. But the war on drugs is one in which you are using the war on drugs to project your power. So, and you are forming alliances with transnational illicit organizations who are marching in lockstep with your agenda. So you have certain ones that you're making war on, and you have certain ones as your partners. So you don't extradite them at all.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to Iron Dependency, and in recognition of World Day Against Substance Abuse and Illicit Trafficking, or commonly called World Drug Day, we decided to bring in Mr. Figueira, Daurius Figueira, you're listening to right now. And Daurius, you know, as you were speaking there, crack cocaine came into the military into the 80s. I was a part of that crew. And one soldier decided that because he worked for Lily Lane at the time, God rest his soul and her soul, right? And for him it was like hunting in the zoo because he had a ready-made market. I was one of the people who fell prey to that. And as you're speaking there now, I'm throwing back and going back to my mind and the people who are listening to us this morning. Look at your communities and see how many talented people, sportsmen especially, musicians, tradesmen, who are no longer with us because of crack cocaine. How many people you would have seen growing up as a child or you grew up with who no longer with us because of this crack cocaine epidemic that hit us and hit us hard. And look at Tobago. Look what started happening in Tobago. Since Ho Choy Charles was chief sec, we warned Tobago that things were going to get out of hand. And nobody listened. Listening to Daurius here now, and I'm thinking, I joined the military too early or too late. I'm trying to figure it out because Daurius, to this day, I still don't understand it. So help me God. I'm serious.
But I think what he's describing is a really big picture that is like one of those trawler nets in the ocean. You throw out your net and you just drag up everything on the ocean floor and people who inadvertently get caught in that net. And God, you're one of them. And this is, again, going back to the business model you described. It's this capitalist model that maximizes profit over people.
And not me alone, Daurius, before you come back, look at the families.
Yes.
The mothers.
Destroyed.
I brought my mother to her knees. And their mothers still to this day, and we could get into that too with the new synthetic drugs and the opioid. Their mothers who till to this day, probably some of them never even saw a cigarette in their life, and in their house, never saw cocaine, never saw. Now they have to face a child who is hooked on these substances. This program is dedicated to them. How do we break the cycle? That's the theme for World Drug Day.
I lived and experienced the crack epidemic and the trauma. You'll hear it when I speak. To see the devastation that was unleashed upon the poorest communities in this country, both Trinidad and Tobago. The marginalized spaces of Trinidad and Tobago already poor. The last bit of wealth was sucked out of these spaces, rendering them even poorer and put into the hands of the privileged. Because what you are doing when you unleash, because I always insist that when they brought in the illicit drugs in 69, 70 in Trinidad and Tobago, there was a political purpose to it. Because they targeted the east-west corridor and the marginalized spaces in the east-west corridor in which to unleash it. And at the same time they did that, that is when we were all marching and shouting, power, power, power to the people, black power.
So what you're saying then is that during that time, wealth that was supposed to pass on stopped in somewhere and was used to consume these substance.
Because when you watch an addict in action, where you would hold on to the house that your bloodline fought and struggled to build. Remember, we ended up in the marginalized spaces, landless, because that was the will of the colonial master, to render us landless. So we started off renting those pieces of land, eventually towards owning it. And we built these houses for the family to live in. And this victim of crack will literally strip the house bare to nothing.
Amen.
Bare to nothing, selling it to the pusher man to get that crack. I know one case, his mother was in New York working. The last thing he did was to take off the entire roof of the house and sell it for crack. Leaving it without a roof, without toilet bowl, face basin. Everything she worked in New York for and sent back to bill for her, that when she gets old and retired to come back home and spend her last years in Trinidad. When she came back, it was heart attack, the shock. It was heart attack because she worked, remitted the money, and came back home homeless. It had nothing to come home to because he sold everything out of that house, stripped it bare. So he brought his mother poor. Because when your brain becomes addicted to a substance, there is no logic, no rationale with that brain, no morality. That brain uses you as the vehicle to satisfy its addiction. That is how you hit rock bottom in an addiction, when you in yourself recognize that your brain killing you and you want out. Many advanced addicts will tell you, I can't live this life, I don't want this life. But it's your brain telling you, go and find it by any means necessary.
Amen.
That is addiction.
I describe it as swallowing a spirit, and that spirit tells you what to do after that. And you could do one. It controls you like that. And people still cannot wrap their minds around. Boy, why you don't stop? Look how you're destroying yourself. It is not that easy.
No,
Daurius.
it is extremely
It is
difficult.
not. The only time I could have killed that beast and put him to sleep is when I went to prison.
Yes.
I couldn't kill it.
When you denied it,
Yes.
and you hit cold turkey.
Yes. And I remember sleeping in a dormitory in Golden Grove and waking up every 10 minutes thinking I could go and get a hit. It's only to realize it. Bars.
Yes.
I was trying to go back to sleep, and that thing tormented me for the 6 months I was in prison.
My brother, that is why now the kingpins of the business ensure that the prisons of North America floating on it. So even though you lock them up in prison now, they're getting it in the prison still. So the addiction don't break. They don't hit cold turkey in the prison no more. So they take care of that end. They take care of that.
And this is why some of our prison officers now's lives are in danger because of this.
Yes.
Because it's big business to smuggle it into the prison.
Absolutely.
And when you do not want to go along with it, how you can stand in the way of big business? And remember, in this game, you don't file a writ and carry it to high court, you know.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency. We have more to discuss after this break. When we return, we'll hear around the world, it's how political and economic systems enable this trade. Stay with us because we have lots more to share with you. For those of you listening, you families who out there are struggling right now, you're looking at your addict sleeping because he or she spent the whole night binging, or you don't know where they are. How can we break the cycle for you so that you could live a normal life again? We'll be back after this break.
Hello?
Hello,
Mr. Dobson here from HMP London. Can I speak to Mr. James, please?
This is Mr. James speaking.
Thank you. Can you hold the line? I have a call coming through to you, sir.
Sure. Hello, Daddy. Hello, yes, Brian?
Daddy, I'm just calling to tell you that look up in the UK for drug trafficking.
Oh, yeah? You lock up? And you tell me I was going to Bago? And I tell you about them boy I was liming with? Well, alright. Don't drop the soap. Carry out.
Eye on Dependency. Reality radio at its best every Sunday on I-95.5 FM.
Organised crime is fueling the global drug trade, devastating lives and communities. This illicit industry is deeply intertwined with human trafficking, illegal mining, and environmental destruction, creating a vicious cycle that traps entire populations in poverty, violence, and fear. But we can break that cycle. Together, we can protect lives, restore communities, and build a safer future. To do that, we must stop organised crime at its roots. That means tackling record cocaine production that's driving violence, with markets expanding worldwide, confronting the surge in methamphetamine production and trafficking in Southeast Asia's Golden Triangle, and addressing the deadly rise in opioid overdoses that are overwhelming already fragile health systems. This World Drug Day, we stand for innovation, cooperation, and sustained investment in justice, education, health, and opportunity. Together, we can break the cycle and stop organised crime.
Join us this Sunday, the 29th of June, for episode 26 of Eye on Dependency, reality radio at its best.
This Sunday on Eye on Dependency, we mark World Drug Day with a closer look at the organized crime fueling the drug trade in Latin America and the Caribbean. In studio, researcher and author Daurius Figueira reveals how these hidden networks of power and profit continue to shape our country and our region.
This World Drug Day, we stand for innovation, cooperation, and sustained investment in justice, education, health, and opportunity. Together, we can break the cycle and stop organised crime.
Listen live from 10 a.m. on I-95.5 FM or watch live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page or YouTube channel. The Counter-Trafficking Unit, Ministry of Homeland Security, brings you Eye on Dependency. We don't just share stories, we change lives.
Thank you for staying with us. This is Eye on Dependency, and again, we are marking World Drug Day with a conversation about the systems, the structures, the history and expansion of the drug trade in our region. It is a question that we've been grappling with, as Daurius has said, since the 70s, and it is getting progressively worse. And we are seeing now that these new psychoactive substances are coming on the market. But I just wanted to talk back a little bit to discuss a little bit about how the political and economic systems that were handed to us by our colonizers have impacted the drug trade and the destruction of families and communities in the Caribbean.
Well, sister, what we must all understand and wrap our mind around is the fact that no illicit business model can survive and prosper if it is not integrated into the legal system of any country. Because remember, all the proceeds of this business is dirty money.
Right.
And to make that money clean, it has to filter into the legal financial system for it to be washed and returned to the client. So what we must understand is that if there was no relationship between the illegal with the legal, between the sacred and the profane, there will be no illicit business model in the world generating billions of dollars in profits, capable of paying off the entire foreign debt of Trinidad and Tobago, the entire internal debt of Trinidad and Tobago, and not even blinking an eyelid. Because that's petty money. So what we must understand is that the illicit business model is part of the capitalist system and its order of power. Because if the capitalist system did not embrace it, it would have shriveled up and died a long time ago. So the capitalist system has embraced it, integrated it into it, because remember, the illicit system is generating billions of dollars in money, and if you're only motivated by profit, you will not turn your back away from a means by which to make money off of the illicit money. So that's the first thing. So you cannot say you are waging a war on drugs and you are not waging a war on the people within the legal system that is facilitating the survival and the growth and expansion of the illicit model. Because the illicit model cannot stand up on its own. It must have organic links with the legal system. And that goes through the entire structure of the world capitalist system. So that is what the first thing we must understand. It does not and cannot operate separate and apart. It is organic too. Secondly, we must understand it cannot operate, thrive, and prosper without compromising your national security apparatus and your political system. So it must be protected by your national security apparatus, and it must be granted impunity by your ruling politicians. So the rule of the game is that the illicit game must always corrupt, compromise, and coerce your national security apparatus and your ruling politicians. And in order for it to become sustainable across time and space as it has been in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean from the 1960s to 2025, that means they have had great success across time and space in continuing to render our ruling politicians and our national security apparatus complicit in the whole affair. If you're not willing to accept that, well, then you're delusional. You're in la-la land. Because, remember, it is the politicians who have the power to pass all the legislation that keeps our national security apparatus current and relevant to a fight against transnational organized crime. It is the duty of the national security apparatus to be constantly evolving rapidly, because the threat has evolved rapidly. What the threat was in 1969 to Trinidad and Tobago, it is no longer the same threat in 2025. If I tell you all what the nature of the threat is today, well then all you might stop listening to Garth and my sister here. Because the threat is now so potently evolved that the issue arises if we can handle the threat. That is the problem. So what we must understand is that this organism, this illicit organism, constantly evolves. So we have reached a stage now where the dominant model of transnational organized crime in the North Atlantic and in the Caribbean and everywhere else. They are now at the leading edge of AI innovation in the fourth industrial revolution, whilst we in the Caribbean continue to muddle through the third industrial revolution. They are at the leading edge of the fourth. So they are no longer dependent upon selling us illicit drugs to make money, because they are now in the business of raiding all your databases, stealing your identity, putting out false documents and taking your house, your car, your safety deposit box, anything they want. Because every single database that exists that they are interested in, they now attack. And it has reached a stage now that they even attack the databases of the US federal government to get what they want. That is what is going on. So in order for them to survive, they must evolve. And they make sure that they evolve to be always at the leading edge. So when you follow their rapid evolution, they are now in the AI innovative age, assaulting. Their play now is cybersecurity.
Daurius, something happened last year. I don't remember, you remind me, it was early this year or late last year. Remember there was a report of a Coast Guard intercepting a cocaine submarine. And one of our servicemen went into the hull. It sank with him. We never heard anything about that again. We don't know how true it was, but it was said that the money to retrieve him was too exponential. So it was too exorbitant. So that, but what happened to the cocaine? What happened to the people they captured from the sub? And what happened to that sailor? To this day, we don't have an answer for that.
No.
That is bothering me to no end, because this is a man who served this country.
Yes.
And in the line of duty, he disappeared.
Oh God, your mic is
Sorry. Yeah.
My brother, what bothered me about the entire event is that the serviceman was not properly trained how on the correct methodology on the open seas to deal with a semi-submersible. All semi-submersibles now that are leaving the coast of Latin America and heading northwards. Some are going to Europe, some are going to West Africa, some are going to Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, etc. They all have built-in explosives. A built-in explosive box on the floor of the semi-submersible, because remember, semi-submersible is molded fiberglass.
Correct.
To the back of the boat. And the rule is, you do not surrender our load when interdicted. You set the timer, you come out of the craft, you climb on the hull, it blows the bottom out, it goes down, and it must sink. Why must our serviceman go into that craft to rescue anybody? That is not his job. This is not a search and rescue operation. This is an interdiction effort with a highly mobilized mode of operation where the crew must be willing to go down with the craft, because the rule is they must not seize the product.
Protect the product at all costs.
Yes, they must not interdict the product. They could get you all, but the product must go down. So when I read it, I want to know, I said, well, why, if you watch how the U.S. Coast Guard interdicts these semi-submersibles in the Caribbean, in the Atlantic Ocean, in the Caribbean Sea, etc., Nobody climbs on board to rescue nobody. They interdict, they stop it, and they stay on their craft and they watch it because they are waiting for it to sink. Because that is the rule. Sometimes they are so sophisticated, the captain of the semi-submersible comes out of the semi-submersible, stands on its deck, and he has the detonator in his hand. He presses the wireless to detonate, throws it into the sea, dives into the sea, and bawls and screams, "Oh, drunk!" Because that's the game. Just like how the game is around the world and in Trinidad and the Caribbean. When you bust in the house and you arrest, the first thing comes out of the mouth is, "Well, you know, I was trafficked against my will." This time, they paid in Bogota and they paid in Caracas to come. But they are taught that from the time they bust in the house and they grab you, because they are every single law on our books, they have their experts read all of our laws and come up with measures to mitigate. So they know Trinidad and Tobago have this human trafficking law, so everybody get trafficked. Next thing, they know every country in the world who have these asylum laws. And they actually form strategies by which to sell packages to people to pay. So, for example, Haitians never used to go to Brazil before. Haitians always looked to go north. They went into Haiti and they started to sell packages in Port-au-Prince. That Brazil has a lax immigration law where you can enter Brazil easily, and the Haitians flooded Brazil. And then from Brazil, they will leave Brazil and then head for Mexico to cross into the zone when Biden and all other presidents before gave them TPS. This is rational, cold, heartless business.
And of course, people are the product that, moving people who are desperate of themselves are desperate.
The people are desperate to leave because it's this royal deprivation.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to Iron Dependency, and we are having a conversation in observance of World Drug Day with Mr. Daurius Figueira. We are covering all the bases here, or at least trying to, with the hope of you understanding that the end product, that child that you are looking at right now or you are grieving over, is just a part of the whole game that is needed for those to stay wealthy. Unfortunately, some of us fall prey. I was just explaining to Daurius the first time I took a hit of crack cocaine, how I felt. And it was the most euphoric feeling I've ever had. And I was studying for exams. But Daurius also mentioned something that we knew all along, that there are a number, because the group, some people I studied with, they popped pills. And you wouldn't believe, our universities, there are people who are actually selling pills. Believe it or not, I didn't make this up. It is the truth. But crack cocaine was my drug of choice. And I just couldn't turn my back from it after that. The studies just went out the window and I lived for that piece of rock. To this day, like I said, I know we can't do anything about the people who is generating this and destroying our communities, and which is we're gonna speak about in segment 3, the impact on our communities and families. Daurius?
And also how we as ordinary folks can break that cycle, having the understanding of the bigger picture and what is happening globally. How can we focus on prevention? Because at the end of the day, that is the only thing that will that will stymie the growth of these.
How do we break the
markets.
cycle? How? Do we start from kindergarten now?
Yeah.
Or primary school?
Prevention
We-
is it.
How do we break the cycle? We know it's like I said, we know like gambling and like alcohol and like all of these things is not going to stop. But how do we save some?
Yeah, what has bothered me immensely over the years is the lackluster and pure political gamesmanship that drives all programs for prevention. Look at the inadequate intervention structure. Up to today in Trinidad and Tobago, after we went through that crack epidemic, the intervention structure is totally inadequate.
Tell me
Because
something. Look at this. Like for instance, when Maurice Lawrence Maharaj was in office, Madeleine Albright came down here, which we felt was the most potent signal to the world that Trinidad and Tobago not playing, was like turning that drug empire into a rehab facility. You know, they shut it down last year.
Yeah.
For what?
Yeah.
Why? Who instructed that? Who? The only state-run rehab facility. Now, the state now, the present government now, saddled with the fact that the state don't have a state-run rehabilitation center, and they may now have to try and reinvigorate one or open one again so that the state can do its part to help the vulnerable. Why? How? You explain to me.
But
How?
also that the fact that, as Daurius says, that there hasn't been a robust effort really to address the prevention side. How long have we been talking about drug education in schools?
Yeah.
Where is it?
Since Mrs. Manning, and we were dismissed. When Mrs. Manning
Where
was
is
minister,
it?
look how long ago that was. But explain to me now, like I said, the most potent signal we could have sent to the world that we're not playing. We took our drug lords' property and turned it into a rehab facility.
Yes.
That was poetic.
Yes.
Now tell me, who? And let me say this, and let me put it on record. This God Sinclair saying this: whoever gave instructions, or whoever decided to shut down that rehab facility, may God be with you. Whoever. And let's hope your children do end up using crack. Well, I know if they do, you all have the wherewithal to send them to even Betty Ford if you want to. But you see the tears of the vulnerable who can't find a place to send their child now, whoever decides to do that, may God be with you.
What I have found over the years, brother and sister, is a society driven by denial.
Yes.
Denial is reality here. Denial.
Yes.
So I want to know where they live. Because what happens is that from the time they hit us with the mandrax, and then they come with now the blow and the sprang, you recognize that the intervention structure is non-existent. The education, non-existent. We still have this delusion in this country that if you teach children about sex education, they're going to have sex.
Yes, yes.
And if you teach them about drugs, they're going to take drugs.
Yeah.
But nobody is dealing with the fact that you have untold numbers encouraging them to come and try, take a taste. And the children totally ignorant of the reality, totally ignorant. Because if you go to teach them, they won't do it. And because what we have now is a social order in which you have nothing based upon research-driven data. Everything is old talk, nothing on research-driven data. And nobody wants to understand the research-driven data proves that prevention programs must work with interventions, and they do work. They do work.
Yeah, when we introduced drug treatment court to this country, as admitted by the manager of the National Drug Council, then they weren't even thinking about that. And we were saying, we did the research. We went to the UK, the US, and Canada, and it was working for them. So then let's try it here. And we had to twist some arms for it to happen. And we were still, and then there is the territorial thing, you know. Well, Garth and Natasha not ordained by certain people, so then keep them out. And so much so that for one drug treatment organization, our names were taken off the list. Imagine that. We brought the things to Trinidad and Tobago. We introduced drug treatment course to Trinidad and Tobago. But then there are those who felt that we were competing. We are not competing with anybody.
Yeah.
Now tell us about the impacts on the communities and the families.
So, what we must understand is that the only effective counter attack against this drive for substance abuse is the way in which we are socialized in this country. The values by which we are exposed to when we're born, we're growing up, and the values that we expose our children to, and then goes on to grandchildren and great-grandchildren, is the values. If you insist that child that the acquisition of material objects, the acquisition of rank, the acquisition of dominance of power is the be-all and end-all of human civilization and human development and the human life, you are creating a child that has a propensity to use illicit drugs, because the sweetness that child is going to get when they use that illicit substance, they will get it from nothing else. And that is the basis of the journey through the addiction. So when you create this desiring machine that always want, you are constituting somebody who is a prime target for the illicit trades. That is who they thrive on. So they use that. And that is why they constantly apply the investment to keep creating new products to satisfy these desiring machines that we constitute from generation to generation. So if you, from small, you expose your child to the reality. I know what it is with my son as a little boy with me. And I used to carry my son with me and show him what a jail cell full of humanity in Nipdeck House was. He was 3 years old when he got his first visit to the holding cells in the basement of Nipdeck House. In those days, the Policeman Magistrate Court was in Nipdeck House.
Yeah, that's where I was tried.
And he just stand up and watched that totally aghast and hearing the men bawling, "Oh God, oh God, Sergeant Ali, flash, flash." And I watch him and I tell him, I say, that is where you end up when you choose to pursue the life.
3 years old.
3 years old, you get it. What up?
Well, I got it as 23, and I saw, that's where I saw Tux and Bulls and all of these guys in Nipdeck House downstairs. Yeah, just before we show people what we want to show them this morning, those of you just joining us, you're listening to Dependency. Thank you very much for joining us on the radio, Facebook, and YouTube. Rosemary Bishop out there in Brooklyn, New York, thank you very much for joining us as usual. Good morning. Hear what she said. Daurius saying this is true. In those days, I had 2 cousins fall to drugs. Stole from my father. Unfortunately, one died from an overdose. The next one was lucky he's alive due to rehabilitation. We have so much. We could carry on this conversation for months.
Yes.
Because we just barely scratching the surface. What we want to know is, how do we break the cycle? And we gave an example already. Again, for the past 15 years, like I've said on interviews that I've done for the past week, we asked for substance abuse or drug education to be placed on the curriculum in schools. You need to start. That is, we have to save. That is all we are fighting back. We can't bring down the big empire, right? We cannot. But what we can do is save some of our children. Give them an informed choice. After that, then let them decide if they want to try it or not. But at least we could catch them before they start using drugs, because a lot of children are using drugs before the age of 25. Teenagers using drugs, damaging their brain. How do we sell it to them in a potent way that make them open or give them an aha moment? How do we do that?
What is happening is that Trinidad is now faced with a crisis. Trinidad and Tobago is faced with a dire crisis. If you all feel the crack epidemic was bad, we are now in the era, the third decade of the 21st century, and going forward is the era of a whole cornucopia of synthetic drugs. The good old days of the manufacturing illicit drugs based on plant materials like cocaine and heroin is dead. Because for synthetic drugs, it's man-made precursors. That means the profit margin on a synthetic drug, cocaine and heroin, cannot compete. Since it is synthetic precursors, man-made, that means you can set up your drug labs right in the heart of your consumer market. We already interdicted a methamphetamine lab in Trinidad.
I was just about to ask you, what happened to that guy?
He got bail and he left.
Thank you.
He got bail and he left.
You all remember that story, folks?
A
The Chinese guy?
national?
Yes,
The
gone.
yeah. But
He
you,
gone.
you didn't expect that to happen? How? I've been to the prison. You say I've never seen a Chinese in prison. They have no Chinese up there right now.
No,
So I'm sure he's not there.
no, but
Because
how did that happen? How?
he had his lawyers that kept going before judge after judge, only asking for bail. And then they gave him bail, and as he got bail, he disappeared.
But Darius, I could have told you that was
Yes,
going to happen.
but I was just waiting to see the next shoe drop, patap. Because the reality is the fact that and remember where he had the meth lab, posh
Yes,
place.
residential area.
So, but you see, what we must learn in Trinidad and Tobago, in order to have a meth lab, you must have the precursors. So that means the precursors wash in Trinidad. And that means we can have meth labs wherever and whenever in Trinidad and Tobago. The only way you know you have meth labs is two ways. When it catch a fire and it blow up.
Yeah.
But better yet, the toxic waste that is generated by a meth lab, they dump it indiscriminately. It destroys the ecology. It destroys the environment. It is toxic to both plant, animal, all away. But the fact of the matter is, it is so flexible in its manufacturing. You set up a lab here, you make your batch. Small quantities are so valuable, much more valuable than a kilo brick. So it is a dream come true. But what we must understand, the lesson, the message is, you must learn the impact on the human brain and the human body. That is the way you make it. I am telling you the business model. But the fact of the matter is, meth, and what always accompanies meth now is the fentanyl derivatives.
Don't talk about that one.
U.S. Homeland Security has already stated publicly that there are fentanyl derivative labs putting out product in the Dominican Republic that is being moved into Puerto Rico and from there into the eastern seaboard of the United States. If all you feel is have no fentanyl in Trinidad and Tobago, all you're delusional. I could tell all you how long it's here. The fact of the matter is, when you get addicted, fentanyl is a synthetic opioid, much more potent than opium and heroin and all of that. Much more potent than oxycodone and much cheaper. Just now in Trinidad and Tobago, when that epidemic hits here, the police, the EMS, and every single emergency room in medical room in this country will have to start stocking Narcan by cases.
We've said that many times.
But also fentanyl is a little deceptive in that it's also used in the medical field legitimately. It has legitimate medical use.
Because they prescribe it. So you have leakages through the prescription system, and then man beat that now by setting up their own labs and selling it on the street. So if you are raising children, and these children are not exposed to the realities of these threats, these children does not know what the threat is and how it is going to destroy their life. Well, then you are being cruel and inhumane to that child. Because what is happening now, they are taking the fentanyl, and so they're selling you a ganja muffin. My brother here talks about you buy the edible, but the edible laced with fentanyl. Do you all want to understand how toxic fentanyl is? If you touch fentanyl with your bare hands or any part of your skin, touch fentanyl, it breaks the skin barrier and enters your body. And before you know it, you're tripping. So it is an innocent thing. You ain't no addict, but your finger just touch somebody, leave some residue somewhere. So in the United States of America, the police, Customs and Border Protection, when they have any suspicion of fentanyl use, and they have to put on their face mask, their gloves, their entire protection, because I have seen it. Innocently, the Customs and Border Protection officer touches it, and he freaks out right there. No time, they have to hit him the Narcan.
How many of our EMS personnel have Narcan in their possession right now?
I sure none.
I want to suspect that too, and this probably may help them to understand that we need to gravitate to that or elevate ourselves where that is concerned, because we said it here, we have to be the luckiest country in the world to never had one person overdose on any drug. And when EMS pulls up, let's say at night your mother push your bedroom door and see you floating on the ground, that mother wouldn't know what to do. But when they call EMS, dial 911, they're supposed to know you. When you describe what is happening to the person in front of you, they know right away naloxone or Narcan must be applied. Now we may have to tell parents, just buy it and keep it in your home, just in case.
Yes.
Because you have a son, every time or daughter, every time they come home, they go and they lock the door, and they're inside there for long hours. You don't know what they're doing, and when you try to, you only come out to get some fresh air and go back inside. You don't know what's going to happen. But if they overdose in front of your eyes, what do you do? So maybe just now we have to have houses stocking up with this thing.
But that is common practice, my brother, in the United States.
Yes, it is.
People buy it and keep it in their house, because I have actually seen, because what people must understand, the fentanyl derivatives shut down your brain stem. So that means all your involuntary brain activity collapses. So that means you don't breathe. So you take the fentanyl and you stop breathing. That is what kills you. And the only thing to immediately apply to you to hopefully save your life is the Narcan or the Naxalone. So if you all don't want to educate yourself and your children about that threat, well, then you're offering them up as sacrifices on the altar of expediency.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency. Thank you very much for your comments on Facebook and YouTube. We're going to go to a break, and when we return, again, we're going to do in our way to educate you. We have a video of some edibles. We have the cannabis, report on cannabis, what the school in Bahamas decided to do about it, and this is interesting. And drug-dependent babies. For those of you mothers who still think that you can drink and smoke when you're pregnant, we have some news for you here this morning. Because we try to, to partner with an entity in this
beverage company
yes,
in Trinidad.
and they just refuse. I don't know why. Maybe Giselle Laron West was the last of the Mohicans in that organization who understand that there's a thing called corporate social responsibility.
No, but
and
it comes back to the
sad.
profit over people.
Yeah,
Profit
because you're
over
not going to
people.
lose.
Correct.
I don't know why you think you're going to lose if you educate people. I will never forget, Darius, when we even though they cooperated with us, one promo we did was Roxanne Gialdo. We recruited her and her son to record. She coming home, she's a pregnant mother, and she said she was about to pour a drink. And the son stopped and said, Mom, what you doing? You cannot be drinking while you're pregnant. There's a thing called fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. What are you doing? You know, they tell us, don't play that one. Let's go to a break. We'll be back. Let that sink in.
Hello. Hi, this is Patricia Kent from HMP London. Can I speak to Miss Sheila, please? This is Miss Sheila. Hi, I've got an important call for you. Please hold the line.
Mommy, it's Sherry.
Oh, God, Sherry, we looking for you all the time. 3 weeks now. Where you going?
Mommy, according to tell you, I get locked up. I had drugs in my luggage and I'm in England right now. In jail.
Oh, God, Sherry, what? What you do? How you reach there? Oh, God, how we gonna go?
Oh, God, Mommy, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. It'll be all right. Sorry, sorry.
Eye on Dependency. Reality radio at its best every Sunday on I-95.5 FM. Don't miss.
Illicit drug markets and instability breed one another. The cocaine market is breaking records while ravaging communities along its supply chain with deadly violence. Synthetic drug production is thriving in the ungoverned pockets created by conflict from Europe to Southeast Asia to the Middle East. And opiate trafficking continues to generate hundreds of millions of dollars in conflict settings and billions along volatile trafficking routes. Organized crime groups are turning turmoil into business, and drugs are a centerpiece of their business model. Meanwhile, prevalence of drug use has increased by 16% over a decade among the world's population. We are seeing more drug use, more vulnerability, and more criminal profits. The answer is to invest in prevention and tackle drug challenges at their roots, at every point of the illicit chain. By reducing drug demand through awareness raising, treatment, and care. By detecting and eliminating synthetic drug labs and helping farmers find alternative livelihoods to illicit crop cultivation. By equipping law enforcement with the skills and tech to dismantle drug trafficking networks and keep up with the ever-changing threats. And by enhancing international cooperation in the face of cross-border drug trafficking, including through joint operations and intelligence sharing. Prevention and preparedness are how we break the cycle of organized crime that preys on people, especially women, young people, and the most vulnerable. On this International Day, let us commit to a safer, healthier, and more prosperous world, free from the grip of drug abuse and trafficking.
Support the Eye on Dependency Curry Q fundraiser by Hot Shop. Just $55 gets you one wrap or 2 mini rotis. From 16th June to 30th July. Get your tickets today. Call or message 75666337 to enjoy a delicious Hot Shop roti and support your favorite radio program.
Thank you for staying with us. This is Eye on Dependency, and again, in recognition of World Drug Day, we are talking about breaking the cycle of the tremendous harm that is caused by the drug trade in Trinidad and Tobago and worldwide. And thank you to those of you tuned in online on Facebook and YouTube, as well as on the air on I-95.5.
Folks, the most we can do, from my experience, This is where Ion Dependency started. Before we go to video A, short man, I want to tell the parents out there, and I know of two right now who enabling your addicts. Now you don't know what, maybe you don't understand what enabling means. If your addict comes out of rehab, and I'm using the word addict because it's you know what we are accustomed hearing, or your dependent person comes out of rehab, it must take them 1 year, let's say to be generous, 6 months to a year, before you put any money in their hands again. I talk to parents who think they know better than me. So when your addict decide he wants money, you're sending money via Western Union for them, and expect that the money wouldn't trigger them.
Or putting $1,000 in their hands.
Or putting money in their hands. Or give them an expensive phone. And do expect that they would use that to barter to get drugs. If I come out of rehab last month, I must not be doing the same things that I did when I was on the drug itself. Which means I have to be home by 6 if I don't have a job. If I have a job, I have to be home by 6. If I don't, then I have to be home doing stuff around the house and keeping my mind occupied. But I must not have any money. If you're a married person, you came out of rehab, your wife or husband must tell your employer, send his salary or her salary to this account. He or she must not get that money. Because from the time they get it in their hands, it is a trigger. And they would relapse. I have tired saying this to you all, and you all still think that you could keep them calm, that when they throw a tantrum, you give them an expensive phone or you give them money. You're just making bad matters worse. I'm going to say it again. If I have to go to work, I have to go to work with the lunch and just enough money to take a bus or give them bus tickets. An addict or a recovering person in recovery must not have any money on them at all for at least 6 months. I know it's hard. That's why it's called surrender. Stop enabling your addict. If someone just come out of rehab and they going back on the block lineman, or they leaving home 10 o'clock in the night and say, I'm just going to do it to come back. That is not a person in recovery. That is a time bomb waiting to explode again. You decide what you want to do. Short man, let's go to, you need to add anything to that, Daurius?
The circle of friends they had whilst they were addicts, you cannot keep that circle of friends when you say you come out of rehab.
Thank you.
Because addicts always stick together, band together, and help each other be addicts.
And to those of you who listen who lime on blocks, when the addict come by you, or you see them coming on the block to lime, only get up and leave them sit down right there. Or run them off the block. But don't enable. That is all we're asking, so that you could help save some lives out here. If you running a block on a drug block in your community, and you see children who grew up in front of your eyes coming out to buy drugs from you, what do you do as an adult? Sell them the drugs? This program here will continue to reach out to communities east, west, north, south, and central of Trinidad and Tobago. We don't care who you are, but all I know, you don't want a person like me in your living space. I saw what my mother went through. It is not a nice thing. My mother hardly slept, and when she was awake, she was crying all the time. She went to every church that I went to in Trinidad and Tobago to try to save me. Prison did. Let's go to that video A.
Yeah, this is a short one. It's just an ad for cannabis edibles that was recorded on.
Oh yes.
On IG, on Instagram, right?
On our social media.
On social media in Trinidad and Tobago, an ad, and guess who is targeting?
Look at it.
You can, for $100, you can get, just run it again, short man. But for $100, you can get, is a 420 sale, loony juice, a gram of HG, which I assume is high grade, and a pack of our specialty Cheetos. $100. This is advertising on Instagram. This is targeting young people. You hear the music in the background, right? We know who the target audience is. So your teenager is gonna see this on Instagram and say $100. Well, can get on with that.
Cheetos, you know. And you could imagine you go into your child bag and you see this Cheetos inside you and decide, yeah, I like Cheetos, you know, thanks, and start to eat that.
Yes, and I have personal experience of a relative of mine doing just that. Her son had an edible in the fridge, a cookie. She decided to eat it and end up in the hospital because she did not know what she ate and why it happened to her. What had happened?
Daurius said, a night we home, after 10, phone ring, and she's in a panic because she was watching TV, felt little peckish and decided, let me go and see what's in the fridge, saw 2 cookies and ate one. Before you know it, the whole living room started to spin. And she not hearing well and she was in a mess. She thought she was going to die.
That's laced. That's
laced. Yes.
And that is the danger of edibles because you don't know what people put in it.
No.
Correct.
And that ain't no ganja.
Let's go to B. Cannabis edibles in Bahama School. Here's how they dealt with that.
To the hospital again because you go into immediate mode because of the protocols of safe school, drug-free school zone. That is critical. We immediately called the police. As a matter of fact, one of my top senior staff is a police reservist, and so all of those protocols were kicked in immediately to deal with the matter. As I said, we full letter of the law. Also, though, you want to be careful because we don't know. It is active police investigation. We pray to God that as a result of an unfortunate situation, that there be a national address of this, because we've been hiding a lot of things under the rug. And so as we go to Geneva this year to report on how we protect children, I pray to God that this incident, along with several others that have happened in schools recently, will pique the interests of civil society, persons in general, public advocacy and awareness, so that we can mitigate and then stamp out even the thought of these edible, because someone just told me a few days ago they come in the form of gummies. I didn't even know that.
Shortman, pause it right there. Pause it a minute. Look at that. Jolly Rancher. Gummies.
Trips Ahoy.
Crips, yes.
Canna Boost.
You see the names? And look how pretty the packaging. You know children gravitate to that pretty stuff, right? Because it's designed to attract them.
Yep.
People, let's go to C.
See why drug education is important for people, especially for young people.
Let's go to C.
Yeah, discern. This is a news report about drug-dependent babies or mothers who give birth to children who are drug-dependent.
These children are going to be the ones that suffer most from it.
Babies born hooked on drugs are growing up. Children diagnosed with neonatal abstinence syndrome are now old enough for school.
And as they grow, many still suffer problems from their drug-addicted births. 10 News reporter Cole Sullivan follows one child's journey.
It's an R.
Yeah. 3.5-year-old Caden loves to make words.
You spell it? Yeah, good job, buddy. C-A-R, car.
But his grandmother Kathy worries 3 letters may define his life. N-A-S. Caden was born with neonatal abstinence syndrome, dependent on the meth and opioids his mother used while pregnant.
He's just done remarkable. He's made great strides.
You've met Caden before, in 2018. After he recovered from the heartbreaking withdrawal of his first days of life. And again in 2019 when doctors say he was developing slowly and needed occupational and speech therapy. He mastered the therapy, but Caden's grandmother worries he's not out of the woods yet.
It can be lifelong.
Nurse Patty Zetterberg works with kids born with NAS at East Tennessee Children's Hospital. She says behavioral problems can arise in kids about Caden's age.
And the child has a very difficult time being able to manage their emotions.
Caden gets upset sometimes.
Just keeps escalating instead of leveling down, no matter what you do.
But it's hard to tell if that's just because he's 3.5.
Will there be issues down the road? We don't know that.
For now, Kathy Lambert watches him closely and tells his teachers to do the same as the drugs Caden's mother took while pregnant continue to impact his life. Reporting from Loudoun County, I'm Cole Sullivan.
It has been 3 years since the state last updated its count of babies born with NAS. At Children's Hospital, the demand for therapy continues, and most require it for years.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So that is just fentanyl and or methamphetamine and opioids we're talking about. That is not to speak of alcohol and other drugs like crack cocaine, like marijuana.
Daurius, what you just heard there, boy?
What I just heard you, my brother, is his mother was on both meth and fentanyl derivative. His mother was a hardcore. I wonder if she's still alive.
We don't know. Perhaps not, seeing as he's in the care of his grandmother.
Yes. Well, usually what they will do is the grandmother will take custody of the child. But what he is showing is the behavior pattern of a full-blown addict on synthetic drugs at 3 years old.
Now, as we look at the behavior of some people and some children in this country here, could it be? Could it be? That's what I'm saying. And how do we know? We need to start collecting data.
Yes. We need to start doing the blood test.
Thank you. We've been saying it.
How long we saying that?
We've been saying this for at least a decade.
Law enforcement, and there's always the pushback about, people's constitutional rights. But if we want to identify the root cause of people's behavior, the best way to do that, and I think the safest way to do that, is when they're in the custody of law enforcement.
Yes. And you know who can help us too? The rehab facilities, because they do drug tests as well.
Yes.
So they will know what their intake and what they're discovering when people come there, for treatment. We need to start collaborating.
Our go-to position from the time you are violently active in the school system. Blood tests.
Yeah, we agree. And Vincent, I see a message, and again, we as an NGO, we have been plugging away at it. We have a new administration now, and I think by now, and listening to the Minister of Homeland Security, that is, I think by now there's a clear grasp of what we need to do. So, and hold on, we are trying our best to establish certain things. Once we do that, then we'll be able to bring more people on board. Right now, we're trying to stay afloat as it is. So,
but for
have some patience.
That most recent incident with the schoolgirls, the latest on that is that they have been charged, right? But what about the other information about what substances they may have been using? What kind of environment are they living in? What is the substance use of their parents or guardians? What is the drug net or circle, or what? How have drugs maybe influenced?
And you know how that is very powerful,
the
Daurius?
outcome.
When I had the opportunity to do lectures for like camps, people invite me to camps and stuff. And after speaking with these youngsters, I had to tell the coordinators, we need to have a camp for parents.
Yes.
Because these children going back home to the parents.
Yes. Who may also be.
And they tell children don't put water in their mouth to talk. And, you know, so you telling me that, but my father does smoke marijuana right by the dinner table. Normal. And sometimes I did, one time sometimes he feel like he floating when he's sleeping. Because the second-hand smoke, the child. No. And these are the same parents who will go by the school when the child have CAPE, what do you call it? The exam? SCA. And losing their mind because they want the child to pass to the best school. But some of them was exposing the child to alcohol and drugs from a very early age. And expect them to do well in school.
Yeah, because what is happening is that what we desire, we don't really link it to the means that attain the desire. So all we're interested in is the desire, and the desire drives us. So what happens now in the society? People don't want to know, and the people who don't want to know at the most extreme level is the people who run in the institutions of this country, the people who run in the state. I want to know, because if you have children who given trouble in a school setting, you're supposed to do a complete survey of home, any ingestion of any substance abuse, everything.
Looking at
a
cause and effect.
complete profile.
Did we do video D already?
No.
Let's go to that
Video
quickly.
D is basically showing you how methamphetamine affects the human body.
And this is a drug that the Minister of Homeland Security spoke about. Let's take a listen and look if you can.
Methamphetamine is a stimulant that can make you feel extra energized. It can look like a white powder, or it can be made into a clear crystal shape. It is also called meth, speed, crystal, and ice. Most methamphetamine is made in big labs, but people sometimes try to make it in their homes by mixing chemicals and certain types of cold medicines. This is dangerous because cooking these chemicals can cause toxic fumes and explosions. How do people use methamphetamine? People can smoke it or snort the powder up their noses. They can also inject methamphetamine into their bodies with a needle. People smoke the crystal version in a glass pipe. How does methamphetamine affect your brain and body? Methamphetamine can increase your energy, make you breathe rapidly, and increase your heart rate and body temperature. It also causes a loss of appetite, which can lead to extreme weight loss. Methamphetamine causes teeth to rot, called meth mouth, and causes skin to become very itchy, which leads to sores from scratching. Can you become addicted to methamphetamine? Yes. Methamphetamine is very addictive. Over time, it can change the way your brain works. If you stop using it, you can feel very sick. This makes it hard to stop. This is called addiction. For more information, go to teens.drugabuse.gov.
So that was an explanation of how a methamphetamine is used, how it is made, and how it affects the body from the National Institute of Health.
You know, I think we have two people in the studio here who we were born ahead of our time. I keep telling Natasha that. Because the things that we tried to make happen 10 years ago, I think it's now coming that we really need this. And I don't know why it took us so long to understand, but you just explained to me. And when we went to Canada, we had a chance to liaise with what's the name of the institute?
Center for Addiction and Mental
CAMH,
Health.
Center for Addiction and Mental Health, CAMH. And while we were doing some sessions with them, they have people like me who the Toronto police employed so that they could help, because they don't mind saying, we don't know, we need help. They don't mind that. It takes nothing from them to say that. So what they do, they went to CAMH and they say, we need help. We are meeting some people on the streets with certain types of behaviors, and I think it's stemmed from one officer almost beating one to death, not understanding that the person was driven by a substance. So they say, look, we cannot have this happen again, so come work with us. We made that offer here, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told that I needed a degree.
Yep.
So you see how hard it is sometimes
And it's
to
all in
really
an
want to
effort.
pursue and continue doing this
Yeah.
because it's frustrating.
And it's all in an effort to prevent persons who are addicted to a substance from entering the criminal justice system. As a diversion, to send them to drug treatment court as a diversion so they don't have a conviction on their record, so that they can get clean and regain, their standing
I've
in
tried this with the
society.
defense. Tamika, play the first verse in that calypso for me, please. Here's what started this radio program. Listen to this, folks. I recorded a song when deceased Joe Theodore was a Minister of National Security. Here's what I tried to say since then. You all remember what year Joe Theodore was Minister of National Security?
1995 to 2000.
Play it.
This song is dedicated to the ex-sailors and ex-soldiers who fell in the battle against crack addiction, and to those who are still in battle. I want your public to know what's happening in the army in Trinidad and Tobago. Things are not so military. You see, I was discharged for the use of crack. Thank God, today I've recovered from that. After serving for years, I give me blood, sweat and the tears. They thank me with a kick. But when you're on crack, you're sick. I'm fully trained and I know how to use a gun. No work, no money, they put me on the run. Now that I'm going under, it's so easy to surrender my expertise to the drug pusher. So I beg you think, I say think, Mr. Theodore. Think, oh think, please think, Mr. Theodore. Look how much crime happening in the place. While you're donating more addicts to the race, man. Think, I say think, come on think, Mr. Theodore. I hope you're hearing this ex-soldier begging. I just want to know that you care, oh yeah. This is just an ex-soldier's prayer. Come on, I say think.
Daurius, that's what I tried to warn this country about. That's what I tried to warn the military about. And I returned home to be part of the crew that would help, because I just knew it. And you say 95, right? That's when Joe Theodore. When I came back to Trinidad, I saw a colleague of mine who was a sailor standing on Frederick Street. I talking to some people. I just feel this person tug my shirt sleeve. When I look around, was right at Coffee. He's deceased now. Coffee was one of the humblest persons I've ever met. Coffee was a total vagrant. And
My brother, most of us have the same experience. The amount of brothers they went to school with who no longer here.
he was on vagrant. And that's what make me God, Father. Like talking about this, I'm not supposed to be getting emotional on this program, but he was a vagrant. And I put pen to paper, I sat with Barra Marvin and I wrote this calypso. You know what it is to have medicine and seeing people falling by the wayside beds and you're not allowed to administer that medicine?
Welcome to my life, bro.
I'm so sick and tired now. And the amount of people we would have lost. And I have the medicine. I said, this is how we supposed to go, boy. And sometimes I want to know if it was deliberate. coffee was a vagrant, and coffee was one of the nicest persons I've ever met. But we fell in that crack cocaine era. Natasha, we take some calls, please.
All right, let's open the line 622-3937. Somebody saying God's volume is a little low. I don't know why, but all right. 622-3937. Good morning.
Good morning, good people.
Yes. Morning.
Good morning, Natasha. Good morning, Garth, and good morning to the guests. Earlier, I like the word rehabilitation because it means something. You understand? It means that person is supposed to get the necessary training to come back into society. It not only applies to prisoners or people who serve time. It applies to all sectors of society. But the question is, are our rehabilitation services improving in terms of the techniques, in terms of the way, or are we just using the word rehab? And I could talk of certain agencies that have this beautiful word rehab, but are they doing anything to help the people who are so affected? I think rehab should be looked at, re-examined, and the people who hold the position of rehab officers, etc., should be retrained to meet the difficult times we now face, because it is more difficult now than it has ever been in the past in terms of dealing with issues, in terms of dealing with situations. So that whole question of rehab, nice word, but it has to be upgraded to ensure that the delivery of services are paramount to what we do. Thank you very much.
You're in studio with us this morning.
We have a caller. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Garth and Natasha.
Yes.
Good. I again, I don't know how you all do it now. You all have rare courage, and you know, I admire your dedication, Garth, and your effort to try and help these people with drugs. But Garth, that guy presented a very bleak picture this morning, boy.
The situation is
almost hopeless to see him.
Well,
when you talk about the institution that facilitate use of drugs and this sort of thing, and I'm thinking once the privileged and the rich and famous sanction these things, I'm thinking it makes our work much more difficult, because they don't mind it. They could afford it. You know, the children get sick, they send them away to get rehabilitated, and this sort of thing, man. And it makes it more difficult for our average citizens to, to cope with that. The rich and the famous, once it's sanctioned by them, and they seem to be able to, it don't affect them. This guy said 75% of the businesses in Trinidad and Penal is drug related, and they are facilitated by the political.
Caller, thank you very much. We're not going on that road. I don't want to be implicated, and we don't have any proof of that. I never, even if it's true, remember our program is prevention. We have Mr. Daurius Figueira here, who understands the runnings of all this. He explained all of that this morning, but we don't want to be pointing out anybody's business, because we don't want to get sued. We cannot afford it. All right? So, but thank you very much for your contribution, and please be careful when we say certain things on air, knowing that people can be implicated.
And also that conversation is a diversion from the real issues that we need to tackle. Politics is not...
We need to prevention. Let law enforcement deal with that, all right? But thanks very much for calling. Hello, good morning.
Morning, Garth, and morning, Tasha, morning to Figueira, and morning to Trinidad. Garth, be strong, brother, be strong. God, I got a story. Remember that I told you first. Remember that I told you if you had DR in front of your name? Yeah. I meant what I said. Yeah. It's not that I'm against academics, and I do these things deliberately, because I know the society that we live in is a classist society. And the professional class in a lot of ways has failed this country. And the late great A.N.R. Robertson said that because of their selfishness and their deceit, that is why I want them to heal. There are more characteristics to life than just letters in front of your name. That is why I try to tell people. I'm not against academics. Some of the nicest people were academics who were good to me and to my family. But that's not all to life. I got a story this week. Right? St. James are born as one naval stringers. That a real nice Indian brethren that I grew up with. He was influenced to get on the crack. And he was so gone that he didn't even go his mother's funeral. He didn't even attend his own mother's funeral. And he's passed away today. I could give him multiple stories, right? And recovering addicts who have helped me in my situation with advice. So what I try to tell people, I do deliberate to get on people's nerves. That a man is just a man. And we are learning to respect people. People are all skills and facets in different areas, right? And you do always have to have letters in front of your name to respect people and to respect people's talent and ability. And that Caparo Center that Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj took and put it as a rehab, what the hell that was closed down for? That was to serve a purpose, and I'm upset with that. I just want to say, God, you work, you're a brother, you and your wife, you stay strong, brother. I love you as a brother, what you have done for me and for Trinidad and Tobago. But I do these things deliberately, people. Being an academic is not all to life. There's more characteristics to life to make you a good human being. And honesty is part of it too, and being genuine. Thanks, God. Tasha.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, good morning.
Morning. I am Dependency.
Yes, turn off your radio first, though, please.
Right, okay. Let's not remember around the radio.
Yes.
If you're just joining us, we're taking your calls. We have about 10 minutes before we wrap up. Good morning.
Yes, that I am a recovering addict. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, if you want what we have to offer and are willing to make the effort to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. These are the principles that make your recovery possible. One, you have to admit you are powerless over addiction and your life is unmanageable. It's you, the individual. If you want what we have to offer, now, look at, as I tell you, you could take the donkey to the river, and if you want to drink it, he goes drink it. Everything recovery depends on you. Is you have to make that effort. If you don't make that effort, nothing happening. Nobody can help you. You know, everything stands with the individual. I am recovering addict. I used drugs for 47 years. Now I have 18 years clean. I don't smoke. I don't use no mood mind altering substances. I was a member of any, and still a member of any, and at 82 years of age. Okay?
Congratulations, sir. Congratulations. Thank you very much for your contribution. Hello, good morning.
Morning. Hello.
Hello.
Mr. God.
Yes, sir.
With Mr. Asham to the crew. You see that guy said everything. Each one of us want to blame one another when we're supposed to blame our very own self. Somebody selling something you have no right to one buy. They're calling you. We always blaming rich people for this and rich people for that. Nobody in the kingdom of God is poor. But the reality, you see, how we modify everything. Doctor this and doctor that. You think doctor is not addict? You think lawyers is not addict? You think prime minister is not addict? Every single one of us have to be our brothers and sisters keepers. We always complaining about somebody and we never mind our own business. You all have a blessed and wonderful day and God guide.
Thank you very much, sir. Like I said, we're doing prevention, and anybody who would learn something from what we do, we appreciate that. We appreciate the support that we're getting to do it from the Counter Trafficking Unit, Ministry of Homeland Security, and as we continue to educate you. And, you know, I want to say God bless Mr. Lewis and all of those in the past who, Junior Williams and all of those who felt that we would make an impact, and I think we have done so today, but sometimes it gets frustrating, knowing that you have this medicine and you want to administer it and sometimes you're prevented. I don't know what happened in the past, but I hope going forward things will change. Hello, good morning.
Good morning to you, God, Natasha, and to one of my favorite lecturers, Mr. Figueira, Daurius,
Figueira.
Mr. Yes. Daurius. Yes, let me tell you, this is an excellent program. I had a family member who talked about drugs being in the schools since in the mid-60s to the end of the 60s going forward. Drugs, I don't know if you all would have heard about something called MX.
Yes, Daurius spoke about that
either for mad people or horses or something. This relative said since in the mid-60s, going on right up, drugs were in the schools. And let me tell you, and it's certain, and it's prestige schools too, prestige schools. So anyway, what I have to say is that you know why you all do what you do? Because you love your country. And Mr. Daurius, he called a spade a spade. When you love your country and your fellow citizens, the little ones coming up, you will press on. You will take all the challenges. You wouldn't give up because you don't want to see the next generation or two fall by the wayside. And that's what I see from both you and Natasha, and also one of my favorite lecturers, Mr. Daurius Figueira. Right? So you all have to keep on keeping on. But drugs, imagine when this person told me that, this relative, I was shocked in the mid-60s, coming up, drugs in schools, MX and all the other things that they called. You understand? So the thing is start now. And you all are right. When you see children fighting, first thing they do is to run to the law. Everything is run to the court, charge them, push them aside. No, as you all said, do the blood test, examine the environment, get a holistic picture of what is happening with the children, and then you administer the relevant medication to help them and assist them. But everything is run to the court, lock them up and all this kind of foolishness because they don't care. We are all our fellow citizens and we want the best. So keep on keeping on. Blessings to you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, we take one more and we wrap up. We have news coming up. Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Natasha and the other gentleman there. Interesting program, very, very interesting program. And you touched on something earlier that I want to just elaborate on. You see the role of parents. I remember growing up as a young man. I'm in my 60s now. My mother would have come to me before I did common entrance and said to me that one of my brothers was using marijuana, and she was in so much tears to share that with me because he had gone to a youth camp. And those were institutions that encourage a whole lot of things that we are seeing now that plaguing our society, and we need to fix. But drugs, as simple as it is marijuana, I saw that in my late adult life. I've never used it. I've never seen cocaine. I have no interest in seeing that. And I've lived my life in that I like to be isolated. I have a very close network of friends. But what I want to say is that parenting is a big, big part. I have grown children now, and from very early, I've been speaking to them. And there are certain things I would not allow and not encourage. And some things may look very simple. As I told my son, very early, earrings are not allowed. You see, bad habits are gained by degrees. As Mr. Robinson had said some time ago, as streams flow into rivers and rivers to sea. And we have to start nipping some of those things in the bud, and we have to start looking at our children, checking their bags, and making sure that we are parenting in a proactive way to stop this problem. We can't rely on politicians. We cannot rely on law enforcement because, as you said, they're not going to look at the people who can help. If you have a history or some sort of a negative history, as they would call it, they would not employ you. And why? All over the world, they're doing it now to get rid of these problems. And we need to stop that. Somebody needs to really instruct the political directorate to get these centers back up and running, right? To help people and to employ people who know what they're doing. The average policeman who was trained was not trained to do that. He doesn't know. He may be willing, but he doesn't know. So they come out and they just beat people, mutilate people, and they don't understand that people are on some of these drugs and need help. And some of these people are actually begging for the help, guys. And if I have to find you somewhere and come and work with you, I will do it. Because it is important that we do that.
Thank you very much,
I will call you after the program is over, right?
Yes.
I am not trained in that area, no. But I just want to help because at the end of the day, it will make a better Trinidad and Tobago for us. We'd have to stop. It will help us stop living in these jails that we're building for ourselves. Burglar proofing our whole house and gated committees and all of that. Let us help now. Let us do something. Those people need help.
Thank you very much, my friend. Thanks a lot.
Okay, my friend.
All right, folks. Natasha, I don't know. I need to stop this crying thing. You know, it just happened. You know, because
no,
you
but
know,
that just speaks to the emotions and the experience and the trauma behind what you're speaking about.
Yeah, it was trauma. I mean, maybe I'll spend a Sunday telling you all about the journey and how traumatic it was and how surviving wasn't easy. I saw my mom, it half killed her, and I'm seeing mothers going through it today. That's why when I get a call, I know what it means. Daurius, thank you very much for being with us here today. It has been wonderful as usual. I know you would have held the audience, and you did. I'm sure our listening and viewing audience learned a lot from you this morning. Natasha?
Yes. Sorry. We want to thank Daurius for sharing his research and wisdom and insight on a very complex issue. Make no bones about that.
Today's conversation shows that to break the cycle, we have to look beyond arrests and headlines and understand the systems that keep the trade alive.
And if you missed any part of today's program, you can watch the replay on our Facebook page or YouTube channel.
Daurius, just closing comments for you before I wrap up here.
Thank you very much, Garth and Natasha, for having me once again. It's always a pleasure to accept your invitation and be with you all. It is a very daunting task and impact on your life. I'm an old man now, and I'm living the cycle again, coming back that I lived already as a younger man. But you cannot surrender. Long as you have been gifted with the knowledge to know that there is a better path and there's a better way for us as a society, as a nation, you have to raise your voice and say, no more. We must now do it this way. And that is what we are here to do on this program, and I support you all with everything I have. Thank you very much for that work you all are doing.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome. And, you know, I always console myself thinking that there must be a reason I've been through all of this. I don't want to, and maybe it's not materialized yet, but with people calling me uncle, I don't know how long I have to be, you know. Only for you know that.
No, they call me old man.
You see what I mean?
Well, you see, uncle is a little better than that.
Yeah, but that, you know, I still think, I'm hoping that there's some light at the end of the tunnel, because sometimes I still feel I'm in that tunnel. But thanks for spending your Sunday morning with us. Stay safe, stay informed, and remember, awareness is the first step toward change. See you next week on Dependency.
Dependency.
Major news up next with Mr. Sterling.